be using the Quad Draw tool inside of Maya to facilitate the entire retopologizing of our little character here. The Quad Draw tool is fantastic. It's got a lot of really great features, but it can be a little overwhelming at first. So I wanted to slow down and talk about the workflow and the details of the tool so that you really understand how to use this tool to get the best results when retopologizing your animal. The first thing that we have to do in order to get the most out of the Quad Draw tool is to activate a live surface. What we're going to do is that we want to use the Quad Draw tool to automatically align and position the new geometry to snap to the surface of our existing sculpture. So with this object selected, I'm going to go to the top of the screen to this gigantic magnet icon. It's way up here. It's immediately to the left of a button that says No Live Surface. With your object selected, I want you to click on that last magnet, which is going to load the selected object as a live surface inside your system. Now this is turned into a gigantic snapping surface, and anything that we do is going to snap to the location of our sculpture, which is perfect for what we are attempting to do when retopologizing our mesh. You know you have everything set up correctly when this little channel box here is the exact same name as the object that you loaded in. Now mine's called Bear version 3 default, and I can see in this box that says Bear version 3 default, so I know I'm good. I've loaded in the correct object as a snapping or live surface inside of my scene. Okay, so let's get into the mechanics of how the Quad Draw tool works. You can find the Quad Draw tool easily inside of your modeling toolkit, and it's way down here at the bottom, Quad Draw. And if you click on it, you're going to see a small series of options. And this really kind of represents one of the most powerful, but also kind of one of the most confusing parts about working with the Quad Draw tool. On the surface, it only looks like you can do a couple things until you check out the keyboard and mouse shortcuts. I'm going to scroll down here a little bit. The Quad Draw tool relies heavily upon the relationship between your computer mouse and the keyboard itself. Spend some time getting real comfortable with these keyboard shortcuts. Mastery of these shortcuts will enhance your workflow, make you work faster, and you'll get the full range of power that comes with this tool. And there's a lot of power in here. There's a lot of options. Some I use all the time. Some I don't use all the time. Let me collapse this area and return to our tool options. The Quad Draw tool works off of the location of these little dots. With the Quad Draw tool active, any place that you select inside of your scene or anywhere you click inside your scene is going to produce these little green dots. And I know they're very difficult to see, and I apologize. I wish I could make them bigger in the interface. You fundamentally can't, which is like a big problem. I wish you could make it bigger. But there, I've just clicked 4 times, adding 4 dots. In every sense, what I'm adding here are the future vertices of a surface. We want to completely reconstitute this entire model with quad polygons. So I'm going to start with 4. Once I'm happy with the location of these, and FYI, before you confirm a surface, you can move these dots around wherever you want, okay? Just hovering over them will allow you to move it. Be very mindful that when you get close to an object, your cursor is going to change from the selection arrow to kind of an up-down movement, up-down, left-right movement arrow. And once you're happy with these, hold down the Shift key, and you can see pretty quickly that the computer is going to analyze all 4 of those dots and give you a preview of the surface you're about to create. So that's with the Shift key. And then when you're happy with it, just single left click. And voila, you've made your first polygon with the Quad Draw tool. Now as I orbit around here a little bit, you can see that since we loaded our sculpture as a live surface, that polygon has been snapped immediately to the surface of my object, which is pretty cool in my opinion. Okay, so we're going to have a whole series of loops for these, okay? So let's make some more. So once again, we're going to start with some dots. Now I want to have my loop kind of start here and go all the way up. This is a live tool here, so if you want to adjust the location of the surface, you certainly can. I'm just left clicking and dragging in the center of the surface. I can reposition it. Same go with the corners. Notice how it's snapping to the surface of the underlying structure, which is pretty cool, and I'm pretty happy with the placement of that. Okay, now for the next polygon, we don't need to have 4 dots. We just need to have 2 more. So off of the surface, I'm going to click once, twice to add 2 more dots. If I put my cursor in the center and again hold down the shift key, it's going to do some high-level analysis and try to figure out how to create a surface from the existing shape to the new one. I'm happy with it, so I'll click with my cursor and I'm up and running. I can make some adjustments to maybe this edge segment here, get real happy with the placement of all of these verts, and I'm ready to go. The power of the quad draw tool resides in these little green dots that you put down inside the scene. That's kind of the DNA of the quad draw tool. At times, maybe you mess up or you have too many. I'm just doing some clicking here. You can have a lot of dots in the surface, and the more dots that you have, the more problems that you're going to have. Please note that in the tool options, one of the things that you can do now is you can clear all the dots, which are going to remove all of the extraneous green dots from your mesh and allow you to see a nice, clear representation of the geometry that sits in your sculpture. Now, these dots are great for when we're creating that first or maybe second initial piece of geometry. But now that we got 2 polygons going, we can extend the functionality of our quad draw tool with the tab key. Now I'm going to hold down the tab key and click on this last edge and watch what happens. I can extrude out a new polygon. I can even click on the edges here and continue to sculpt and refine where I want that one to go. The quad draw tool makes everything live. It's editable. I'm going to hold down tab once again, and I'm going to click on the edge like that. Okay? So the tab key is the extrusion modifier to our keyboard shortcuts. Please be very careful. I do this a lot, and I'm sure you're going to see me do this on accident from time to time. But if you were to hold down the tab key and just ever so slightly miss that edge segment, you're going to create a strip of polygons like that, which is fun, which is kind of cool. I don't find myself doing that too often because I really can't control the thickness, the width, and the distribution of those very easily, although that you certainly can. But so just be careful. Make sure that your cursor's on the edge before you click and hold tab so they're extruding out an edge. All right, so I'm just going to move a little bit faster here. One of the things I like about Quad Draw is that this is an entirely live surface. So I can very quickly go in, maybe just create some structure. I'm not looking to be super accurate in this moment. That time will come. But I do want to kind of get it back around to something like this. I want to close the loop, okay? The final thing, or one of the things that you're going to find yourself doing with the Quad Draw tool from time to time is closing a loop. Now you certainly could go in and hold down tab, click on that edge, and extrude it down. And when those edges get close, see how it kind of snaps? It's welding the verts together, which is pretty cool. So there's an auto weld function in here as well. If I grab this vert right here and drag it to its neighbor to the south, boop, it's going to weld together, automatically join, which is very cool. Makes closing loops and creating big chunks of geometry pretty easy. However, we also have some other options. Check it out. Quad Draw is pretty smart. It understands the workflow that it was designed for. Check it out. If I hold down, without clicking on an edge or tab or anything, I'm going to hold down the shift key with my cursor right here in the center. And it's going to scan, and it's already found that there are 4 verts within inside of a radius of the cursor itself. And it's giving me a preview of the surface that it would create if I was to click. Well, this just happens to be exactly what I want. So I'm going to click, and I'm up and running. So the Quad Draw tool is a fantastic way for us to throw down some polygons in a live environment so that we can begin to retopologize our mesh. Some other powerful things that the Quad Draw tool can do. With a loop already created, I can put my cursor in the middle of the loop and hold down Control, and now I can add an edge loop. And guess what? All the new geometry that I just added has been snapped to the underlying surface, which is pretty cool. We can even, if we wanted to, extend radially out or radially in an entire edge loop at a time, instead of doing tab left mouse button. Watch what happens when I do tab middle mouse button. It does an entire loop. Now in this particular situation, it's kind of getting lost in the mix a little bit because they're radial loops versus linear loops. But we can also extend out entire loops of geometry. Let me show you a real easy way of seeing that. Okay, perhaps we're taking this surface north a little bit. Well, instead of doing each side individually like this, check it out. This is where the tab middle mouse button comes in. I can do big rows of them at a time. So the quad draw tool is fantastic. It works off of a very easy principle and a very simple principle of these little green dots. Where we click off of the new mesh is going to produce some dots. If we were to hold down the shift key on the inside of those dots, it's going to create a surface. We add the tab key down, and we now can start to extend that surface and have it link up with other parts of my mesh. The live welding and merging the verts make this a very quick way to go in and completely reconstitute our model, all with the quad draw tool.